I'll be talking about Jesus feeds 5,000. Now, in Scripture it says 5,000 men and their families. So keep in mind that this is also more than just 5,000 people, right? That it was 5,000 men and their families, okay? So, I'm sorry, ladies, they were only counting the guys, okay? Just the way they did it. So there was more than 5,000 of them. And this is the only miracle story that is told in its entirety in all four gospel accounts. All right? It's the only miracle story of Jesus told in its entirety in all four gospel accounts. So there must be something to this text, right? That the writers want us to get. So, when we left last week in our journey in Mark, we had just talked about Jesus sending his disciples out into the world. He gave them their mission. Their mission was to listen, to care, to teach, right? And to heal the sick and cast out demons. So Jesus has been teaching them, he's been preparing them, and then he sends them out 2 by 2 out into the villages and out into the countryside. That's where we left off last week. Immediately following that story in Mark's Gospel, then Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist, is executed by Herod. The disciples are returning to Jesus at the beginning of this text that we are going to be highlighting today. As they are returning, Jesus also gets word about John's execution. Being family, being close to John and what John's purpose was in preparing everybody for Jesus' coming, Jesus decides, you know what, it's time to get away. Right? It's time to get away. So let's take a look at the first few verses here. Chapter 6, verse 30. The apostles returned to Jesus from their ministry tour and told him all they had done and taught. And Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest for a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles didn't even have time to eat. Ministry doesn't stop. It's ongoing. Right? It's ongoing. And Jesus realizes the importance that, you know what? You guys have been out. I've been healing. It's time to just stop and be and rest. However, ministry keeps on going. Right? It never stops. It goes 24/7. All right? And so, here's what happens. So they left by boat for a quiet place where they could be alone. But many people recognized him. They saw him leaving, and the people from the towns ran ahead along the shore to get there ahead of him. So they see Jesus. The Sea of Galilee's not big. You can see across it. All right? And so they're like, we know where he's going. And so they hightail it around the sea, around the lake, to reach him on the other side. So Jesus and his disciples pull up in a boat, and guess what? There they all are. They're all waiting for him. Right? Why? Because ministry never stops. It's unexpected. Things come up, right? And here's the deal. We're going to run into situations, we are going to run into people whose prayer we have the opportunity to answer. Have you ever thought of that? That perhaps you are the answer to somebody else's prayer? Right? The question is, how are we going to react in those moments when we don't feel like it? When we're tired? When we're hungry? How does Jesus react? He's tired, he's hungry, people need him. Jesus saw the huge crowd, verse 34, and he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and so he began teaching them many things. Jesus still responds with compassion. Now his disciples, remember, they're tired and they're hungry. So one way we can respond is compassion. The other way we can respond is the disciples. Late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go by to the nearby farms and villages and buy something to eat." In other words, dude, we're hungry, we're tired. Can we please send them away? Tell them to go, right? Jesus responds with compassion. The disciples are thinking about themselves. Right? They don't want to be inconvenienced. And they're thinking about their own needs. And so they're like, send them away. Let them go get something to eat so that we can eat, so that we can rest. Now, their advice may sound prudent, but it's also quite human. The disciples are thinking more in terms of scarcity and self-interest than they are about the abundance of God's kingdom. And Jesus knows if he sends the crowds home, he sends them back into the oppressive and alienating economic realities that made up Galilee. In other words, Jesus responds from the Good Samaritan point of view. You know what the Good Samaritan point of view is? Here's the Good Samaritan point of view. There's 3 people that found the guy who got beaten up on the side of the road. 2 of them, religious people, said they were religious people, passed by. You know why? Because their question was, if I stop to help this guy, what's going to happen to me? The Samaritan who stops asks the question, if I stop and don't help this guy, what will happen to him? And Jesus comes at it from that perspective. If we don't help them and feed them, what will happen to them? The disciples are like, if we stop and help them now, what will happen to us? What will happen to us is we're going to keep getting hangry. That's what's going to happen to us. All right? Jesus, let's go. We're hungry. Scarcity, hunger, fear, these are all symptoms of unjust political, social, and economic arrangements. And our presuppositions about scarcity and the need to secure our own economic well-being always will put us in the place of the disciples. Think about it. If I help this person, what will happen to me? I'll be late. I'll be out some money. Let them start flowing, right? And that puts us in the place of the disciples. I don't have time. I don't have enough. I can't do this. Right? Because we feel that we don't have enough. And as we live in that world, as we live with those presuppositions, we're ultimately going to be hungry. When we are hungry, what is it that we all think about? Food. Right? Food. If you didn't eat breakfast this morning, I bet right about now you could give 2 rips about what I'm saying. Pastor, I'm hungry. Right? We get hungry. Right? And all we want is we want food and we want it fast. Hence fast food. They know what they're doing. We don't have fast food restaurants for nothing. And when we hunger spiritually, right? When we hunger spiritually, we are in the disciples' place, and we then block our ability to live out our calling. thinking about loving God. We aren't thinking about loving people. We aren't thinking about discipleship because it is about something other than ourselves. All we can think about is us and surviving. And so when we're spiritually hungry, we block that ability to be able to live that out. Because we are spiritually starved ourselves to death. And so here all of these people are. You have all of these migrants who are now here and they want to be fed. And they are hungry, physically and spiritually. And we have two responses. And Jesus is choosing the response of compassion. And there's no food. So the disciples say, send them away. Tell them to go back to their villages. So that we can eat and so that we can rest. And Jesus looks at them and he says, no, you feed. But you feed. And the disciples are looking around at each other. And they're like, with what? How many of you ever said that when it comes to helping other people? With what? With what time? With what money? With what? We have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all these people. Jesus says, you feed. Jesus still does this with us today, by the way. When we sit there and we pray, oh, Jesus, help these people. Oh, Jesus, feed those people. I have a feeling Jesus looks down and says, what do you think I have you for? I put you in a certain place, in a certain time, with certain gifts. Already in the gospel story, remember, Jesus has already given the disciples power to drive out unclean spirits, to heal people, to listen, to care, and to teach. Feeding them should be easy. Remember, to be a disciple at the time of Jesus, to be a disciple of a rabbi, which Jesus is, to be called a rabbi's disciple meant you could do what your rabbi could do. Your rabbi believed that, you as a disciple believed that. That's why Peter jumps out of the boat. He sees Jesus walking on the water, and I can do that. My rabbi can do that. He's a disciple. Right? And then he starts to sink, and Jesus says, you have little faith. Peter lost faith. Faith in whom? Not in Jesus. He's still on the water. Peter lost faith in himself. Peter lost faith that he could be and do what his rabbi could do. And so they said, we don't got anything. Jesus says, look again. He says, what do you have? And they say, we have this. Oh, we have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Fit in this little sack. All these people. And he says, give it to me. And Jesus raises it up. Right? He lifts it up. A precursor to the Last Supper, by the way, where he lifts up the bread. Alright? We already get a hint of what's coming. They came back and they reported, we have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus told the disciples to have the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of 50 or 100. Jesus took the 5 loaves, 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed it, broken the loaves into pieces. He kept giving the bread to the disciples so they could distribute to the people. He divided the fish for everyone to share. They all ate as much as they wanted. Afterwards, the disciples picked up the mother of all doggy bags, 12 baskets of leftovers. when you think you only have a little, in the hands of Jesus, it's enough. And when we think, I just have a little bit to give, Jesus says it's enough. These people were hungry. And Jesus knows that when we're hungry, we need something that will last and that will satisfy. And Jesus knows only He satisfies hunger. The problem is that we go looking for things that will fill us up in other places other than Jesus. We go looking for it every which direction. We go to social media, we go to the internet, we go to the news, we go to our friends, we go to Best Buy, we go to Walmart, we go all of these places to find things that will fill us up, but absolutely end up leaving us hungry for more. And yeah, I'm just as guilty of it. Right? Looking for anything that might taste good or stave off hunger for this or that. And apparently this is ingrained in us when we were even little kids. Right? I remember growing up as a little kid, I wanted a Nintendo. But we were farmers. Right? I want a Nintendo. No. I want a Nintendo. No. I want a Nintendo. Let's wait until after the harvest. Ooh, there's hope. I want a Nintendo. No. My best friend had a Nintendo. I played it over at his house. Then one day, my friend got the PlayStation. He wasn't a farmer. Right on cue. And guess what? He asked me, would you like a Nintendo? I was like, yeah. So I had 20 bucks saved up. I bought it for 20 bucks. You know how long I played the Nintendo? For a week. I would stay up till 1, 2 a.m. shooting them ducks that would come out of them bushes. I mean, you would think it was something else. Super Mario Brothers, couldn't get past level 5. Guess what? Got frustrated and gave up. So then I went on to the next thing. I wanted a driver's license. You see it, don't you? You see the movie? McLovin. Love it. Wanted a driver's license. Why? So I could get the car. Why? So I could get the girl. And then I wanted to be out of the house. I wanted to be on my own. And then I wanted to move back in the house. I have to pay for what? Right? And this goes on and on and on and on and on, right? It's the reason why I don't go shopping with my kids anymore. Because by the end of the Target run, I'm exhausted from saying no. That's why I can't walk into my daughter's room. Because there's stuff that she swore she had to have that's just laying there. And she wants the next thing. And we all do this. We all go looking for that next big thing that will satisfy us until it doesn't. We have roving appetites. And it seems like we go searching for it somewhere else. And perhaps the answer is that it's right here in the first place. Maybe the part of the reason we don't live with Jesus and we don't live into our calling and we lapse into spiritual starvation is because perhaps, is because we think just wanting God will actually fill us up with God. There's a difference. Right? There's a difference. And we think wanting it is enough. I hear it a lot. Oh, Pastor, I want to grow spiritually. It's just not happening. I don't know what to do. How often do you spend time with God? Not much. How often do you come to be a part of a faith community? Once every 3 to 4 months. How often do you pray? Hardly at all. So, do you see the disconnect? There's a difference between wanting it and actually having it. Right? Sometimes you got to put in the work. Look, I've been waiting for 10 years to get into shape. But until I decide to do something about it, it just ain't going to happen. Right? Somehow, though, we think being hungry for God will automatically make us being filled with God. And it just doesn't happen. So, maybe you're here this morning, and it's been so long since you really connected with God, you don't even feel hungry for God anymore. Do you realize, do you know that if you go without food long enough, you will cease to feel hungry? I know, weird, right? And even if you don't feel hungry, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Right? Maybe we're going about this the wrong way. Maybe what we need to do is actually go to God and ask to be filled. For example, Logan right now doesn't eat. Logan not only just doesn't eat, Logan grazes. I have never seen a grazer before like this since I had cows on the farm. He grazes all the time. He just picks and eats, right? And I get so mad because literally about 15 minutes after we put up the dishes, Daddy, I'm hungry. We just ate. And I get so mad because he didn't eat when he was supposed to eat. But what do? I give him food anyway. Why? Because he's my kid. Why? Because I love him. And I think that Jesus does the same thing with us. If we just ask him to be filled, I think Jesus will feed us. Why? Because we're his children and he loves us.